Alright, I'm back, and in this video I'm going to discuss my B5.6. What? B5.6? Associated never made a B5 point anything. What are you talking about? So this car is a little experiment I've got going on here. Again, from New Brunswick. Old school tracks. I've got my own backyard track. Our tracks are 100% natural. Hired a bobcat, tear off the lawn, destroy my home's resale value, but whatever. That's not important. What is important is I got my own track. And that track is completely natural. Tore off the sod, what's underneath is what I have to work with. So needless to say, the new cars that hit the market these days, being mid-motor, are designed for the high bite tracks, primarily located in the United States, where the surface is man-made, not natural. It's treated with additives and chemicals and all kinds of crazy stuff to bring the grip way up. Like, I'm confused. I race on carpet with tires that have pins on them, but people race on clay with slicks. Back in my day, slicks were for on-road, not off-road, but whatever. We evolve, we adapt, move on. Here, though, we haven't evolved. Our tracks are stuck in the 80s and 90s, and that's how we like it, damn it. But the car manufacturers don't produce cars to suit our needs, so we do our best to adapt the cars that we have. For example, my B6, it's a B6.2D, came with a laid-back gearbox. Threw that in the microwave, then the garbage, then the blender, then back to the garbage, and bought a 4-gear stand-up. The 4-gear stand-up gets the motor up and as far back as possible without becoming a rear motor car. This car is a rear motor car. It's a B5, kinda. The B5 was Team Associated's last production rear motor car. This and the B5M were available at the same time. What you're looking at here is a car that I built using a B5M to B5 conversion kit. So shout out to Hobby Hobby for having the last one available on planet Earth. It sat there for quite a while, and I hummed and hawed and talked to my buddy Jesse about whether or not I should do it, and we went back and forth, and then I think at one time we decided, no, don't bother, and then bother. So here we are, I bothered. So what I did was, I had a B5M, shout out to Jesse again, that I ended up selling. So when I had the B5M, I looked at this kit, and then I decided to go another way, this conversion kit. I decided to go another way. And time went by, about a year, I decided to get that conversion kit, and all the parts that were supposed to be on the B5M that you would use to complete the conversion kit from B5M to B5, instead of using B5M parts like caster blocks and steering blocks and stuff, I decided to replace those parts with B6 parts. So that's why I call this a B5.6. And also, I don't know if I should call them out by name because I don't want them to get flooded with help requests from other people with too much time on their hands that want to do obscure projects. But there is a pro who will remain nameless from Australia, whose name rhymes with Monday. Helped me out a lot with this project. I mean, he's got a Facebook page, Ask Ray Monday, so obviously he's open to you asking him for help. Anyway, a couple of things that he helped me learn about was that some of the Team Associated suspension arms have built-in sweep, and some don't. And the new B6.2, the arms don't have built-in sweep. The sweep is actually built into the hubs, which makes sense if you stop and think about it for a second. B6.1, the arms are actually labeled left and right. When you get into B6.2, the arms aren't labeled, the hubs are labeled. Yeah, right there. You can see, what am I doing here? Focus, pay attention. An L on the hub, and yet it's on the right-hand side of the car. So that was the most important thing that Ray tipped me off to, is that the sweep is in the hubs, not the arms. And so the back of the car here has B6.2 arms and B6.2 hubs. The reason why I'm running the left hub on the right side of the car and the right hub on the left side of the car is because there's already sweep built in to the car. Being a rear motor car, it was designed to have inherent sweep built in automatically, sweep or tow, whatever. So Ray figures that if I was to use the hubs on the correct sides, it would actually be too much sweep and would be counterproductive and work against the car. So it'd be like running 5 degrees of tow when 3 degrees would do. All right, so what's B5 and what's not? So looking at the front here, the shock tower is still B5. Now, it came in flat or gull, and I believe the standard was flat, and so I've got flat arms, flat gull tower. Like the crust of the earth won't crack, it's true, if I run a gull tower with flat arms, but being make pretend OCD, I choose to not mix my towers and my arms. If the tower is flat, rather if the arms are flat, I run a flat tower. Now, A-Main has a nice carbon fiber version of this tower that I'm looking at purchasing to put on this car, just for no particular reason other than it's carbon fiber and cool. I'm still running a B5 25 degree bulkhead. I'm running the B5 plastic brace. I had an aluminum brace. I have an aluminum bulkhead. I have 2 aluminum bulkheads actually. This one is really cool. This one comes from Exotech, and it is 25 degrees. And even though it's skeletonized, like cut out here, it's not as heavy as the associated one. I have an associated one that came on a used car that I bought that's 30 degrees. So if you do run a 30 degree, you got to remember to run 0 caster inserts. Otherwise, you'll end up having a kick-up angle of 35, which I think is excessive, but I could be totally wrong, because that's something yet that I've not learned about too much. I mean, just I can regurgitate what the back of the manual says, but I trust that if you got this far, you know how to read and can figure it out for yourself. But kick-up angle, the angle of the front of the arm in relation to the back of the arm, and it has to do with the initial steering, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I'm mostly making this stuff up. All right, so shocks I put on Kashimas, of course, not because I notice the difference. They just look cool. Let's see. Okay, so just like my Pro SC10, we got 6 series caster blocks, steering blocks, aluminum axles for the front, and you can see here I've got the 3mm caster hat bushing at the top, so I can bring my steering block and my axle all the way down, which is supposed to increase steering. Speaking of steering, these angled ball cups. The only car I've seen so far that the manual calls for them to be used is the 4-wheel drive. The reason why I chose to use them on this B5.6 is because the angle coming off of the steering rack is quite steep. And so what this does is this helps keep the turnbuckle itself more parallel to the arm, the A arm, front suspension arm. So we'll see how it turns with these. It's not a big deal to swap these out, but after having a conversation with a buddy of mine about B5 or B4, I can't remember, that he had some weird steering geometry issues. I thought that these angled cups would help clean that up. So we'll find out for sure on the track if I need those or not. Of course, B6 steering arms. Same idea. The B5 arms don't have as much versatility for adjustment as the B6. Exotech aluminum steering rack and team associated bell cranks. Savox servo. Nobody cares. Every car has a servo. That's not what this is about. Now, at the back here, aluminum chassis brace. Unfortunately, I don't have aluminum C-block. So I've got the kit C-block that we talked about in the other video. That is by default 3 degrees of toe and 2 degrees anti-squat. I would prefer 4 degrees of toe. 2 degrees of anti-squat I think is going to be okay. I think. The D-block is aluminum, and it does have the inserts. Now the inserts for the D-block are very straightforward. Those pills, they're not like the 6 series pills. They got an arrow on them, and the arrows either point inboard or outboard. And the suggestion from Ray was to have the arrows point in with that 3.2. I will of course test, flip them. I'm also going to test flipping the hubs. Once I get the car on the track and it's like broken in because all the parts are new and stuff, I'm going to run it for a couple of battery packs. And before making any setup changes, just give all the parts time to settle in and make friends, play nice together. Then I'll start working on some adjustments. If there's nothing like really weird, if I don't need to move shock position or change roll sensors and stuff, basically what I'm saying is after I get the car dialed, then I'll swap these D-block inserts around to see if it improves performance or not by producing more traction and better handling. I'll also swap the hubs and see what that does. You know, it's going to provide more traction, but at the expense of speed probably, so too much toe can actually work against you. What else we got going on? That's B. So the gearbox that came with the B5M to B5 conversion, again, it is interchangeable with a Pro SE10 or a DR10 gearbox, but not identical. And that gearbox is made differently on the inside, and the top shaft for the B5 does require a spacer, and I didn't have that. I had internal parts for, well, I had a whole second Pro SE10 gearbox because I bought a used Pro SE10 to scrounge some of the aftermarket hop-up parts off of it for this project and the other project. So this gearbox is off of a used Pro C10. It has a gear diff. Both my Pro C10 and this have gear diffs. The only difference between a B6 gear diff and a B5, sorry, ball diff. It's the end of the day. It's Monday. Both my B5.6 and my Pro C10.6 have ball diffs. The only difference between a 6 series ball diff and the 5 series ball diff is the outdrives. The outdrives are not skeletonized like the B6. They're shaped a little different. I think they're a different size as well. But if you have all the other parts, all you need is the outdrives, and you can build a ball diff for your B5. What else? I mean, basically, it's a car version of the truck project that I did, right? And again, the rationale for this is the guys who are on podium all the time, yes, they're better drivers. There's no question. But they also understand a heck of a lot about setup. And if they wanted to, they could set up a mid-motor car. And they have probably in reserve mid-motor cars that they're testing, and for the day that they finally can't replace the 25-year-old parts on their TLR rear motor cars. I'm being facetious. They're not that old. But TLR has not produced a rear motor car for a while. Parts will eventually dry up. And so these guys will eventually have to join the mid-motor gang. And that being said, they're still running rear motor cars for a reason. Yes, they can drive better than the rest of us, but they're also running rear motor cars because they're the easiest to set up for our old school natural tracks. The only reason the cars changed is because the tracks changed. Well, this is Atlantic Canada. We don't even know Elvis is dead yet. We're dying to get the internet. So obviously, if we're that behind the times, we don't know that tracks have changed, and we're still using old school tracks. So what works better on an old school track than an old school car? That's where we're at here. So that's what we're doing. We run on carpet with mid-motor stuff, and the winningness guys on dirt are running rear motor. So I have 4 mid-motor B6s, so it's not like I don't have one, but I want to give this a go. I'm being cautiously optimistic that it's going to be amazing. I really hope it is, and I have a backup plan if it's not. So I don't know if B5s always came this way, but the B5 battery is in front of the electronics. The electronics are at as far back in the chassis as possible. Kind of dumb. The Pro C10, not an issue. The battery goes all the way back against the shock tower. Here it's the electronics. So, it messes with your weight bias. You're not getting as much weight to the back of the car as you possibly can. Now, I mean, it is a rear motor, so in theory there should already be enough weight back there, but hey, overkill is the right amount of kill, right? So, how do we get the battery further back without chopping up the chassis? You don't. You buy another chassis and you chop it up. Stupid question. Only problem I have is this is a hard chassis. So hard stuff is typically meant for high grip. And I don't know if that's why they did this. If they wanted the rear motor car to run better on high grip. So they perhaps, total speculation on my part, they redesigned the chassis and moved the battery forward a little bit, put the electronics back. I don't know. But anyway, I'm not cutting up that chassis. I got a used chassis out of the US. And it will get cut up. So I'll just cut the brace out here, the width of the battery, move the battery all the way back, slide the electronics in the front, and Robert's your father's brother. Done. So, this is the current newly manufactured viable rear motor option for Associated. It takes some doing, but you can still run rear motor cars and newly manufactured rear motor cars if you are on the Team Associated fanboy group. But no, if you want to run rear motor and you want to run new stuff, you can do it if you're a Team Associated guy or you want to become a Team Associated guy. Because not only does the Pro C10 exist, the DR10 exists, but so does the SR10. So the SR10 is a dirt oval car. It's almost basically a B5 right out of the box. The only thing is it has that wide chassis. It uses the same chassis as the truck. So if you can find a B5 chassis and you go buy the SR10, ta-da, you can build one of these and have, newly produced 5 Series parts. Or if you're really foolish, you can buy that SR10 B5 chassis and then fill it with 6 Series parts. So front arms, steering blocks, caster blocks, all 6 Series. Rear arms, rear hubs are all B6.2 series. Unlike my Pro C10, I went with B74 hubs because there's no sweep in them and the arms I use are swept. So that's why the hubs are different. So I had this out on carpet on Saturday just to try and drive it. Just to break it in. I was just chomping at the bit to test drive it. So you know what? It worked like it was supposed to. And it drove on carpet like you would expect a rear motor car with a ball diff to drive with carpet tires. It's funny. There was a double on the track and I could hit the double at will with this, but I couldn't always land the double perfectly with my B6.2 carpet car. I'm not sure what to attribute that to. I mean, driving this one I could pull it off, so I understand timing, but driving my B6.2 wasn't always able to get it. Not as reliably. The confidence wasn't there that the car would hold and wouldn't crash on the landing or overshoot or whatever. So somebody, me, may have actually put a car into the exit, the door straight off the track and into the emergency exit apparently, but it's not on video, so it's allegedly it happened. But yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. That was the whole purpose of reviving this channel, was some people wanted to see what these looked like and for me to talk about them a little bit. So there, it's done. You're welcome. Take care, everybody.